Hi, welcome to the very first episode of the Critical Talks podcast. My name is Gabor Sabo. I'm a quality engineer by profession and by choice, and I'm excited about what the future holds for industry and engineering. My goal on this podcast is to show you and talk about how fundamental forces and philosophies have shaped manufacturing industry in the past, and how new methods, technologies, and culture will continue to shape it, eventually resulting in better products, services, and ultimately, and hopefully, a better world. The first topic we go over today is the ever-growing role of software in the future of industry. All right, let's get started and see who my first guest is. All right, so my first guest is Ali Ahmedyar. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Ollie.
Yeah.
Just kidding. He's actually Ollie's my friend. We've been friends for a few years now, and I wanted him to be on the podcast because Ollie's an incredible mind. He's kind of a jack of all trades. He does everything. But by profession, he's a quality engineer, but is also self-taught, from what I understand. You'll correct me on that. He's a self-taught software developer, so that's exactly why I wanted to talk to you today, because today's theme is, the role of software in industry and the future of software. So I'm pretty sure you have a lot to talk about, a lot to tell us about software based on, just from your experience. So yeah, Al's a great guy. So how about you give us a 1 minute elevator pitch on Ollie? Ollie.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. Thanks again for having me on this show, Gabor. And yeah, so my career, I've been in quality engineering for about 5 to 8 years now, and I've worked in various organizations across various industries, including aerospace, medical device, and biotech. I've also worked in consumer tech as well. I worked for very large enterprises, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, and I worked for startup size companies as well too, in the field of quality, but also have done some work in software development for various companies. And so I've seen quite a lot in my career.
Great. Okay, so you're a quality engineer and you're also a software developer, self-taught, I guess, right? So that's a
Correct.
very, very interesting mix of two disciplines, right? So I'm pretty sure, I've been in quality myself, but I haven't really been in software. I'm pretty sure the software part has shaped, the other side of, you in some way, shape, or form. So can you tell us about that? Like what you've done as far as, being a software developer, and when it comes to quality or even outside of quality, what kind of projects you've done and how it's shaped your views and how you view, say, quality and industry.
Yeah, no, that's great. So my experience with software started back in high school. I took my first C++ class, and that's when I learned how to code. And then from there, everything else has been pretty much self-taught. I taught myself web application development. I taught myself mobile application development. I did various projects here and there, from hackathons to entrepreneurship competitions that allowed me to really hone in my skills in software development. So even though I'm self-taught, I've done a lot of projects here and there in various settings, academic and professional, that allowed me to really develop my skill set in software development. And when I got into the field of quality engineering, I realized the need to know, or the need to have some software development experience to be able to do my job more efficiently and more effectively by means of integrating software development methodologies and concepts in my day-to-day work. So for example, when I was at SpaceX was the first company where we had a fully digital enterprise. Everything in our manufacturing operation was in what do you call it? Essentially in a database. And we had an application called Warp Drive that everybody in manufacturing interfaced with. And so that's where I really saw my skill set in software development really being very valuable, because we didn't have very many quality applications that connected within Warp Drive. So I saw a need of developing those quality applications that can also work with the manufacturing data that Warp Drive was generating. So there was a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of need for software developing experience and skill set in future quality engineers, because,
Even for
uh,
quality professionals,
oh,
quality
absolutely.
engineers?
I would say any engineer, yeah, engineers that are working in a manufacturing setting, in an operation setting,
Yeah.
at
Okay.
least having some level of understanding of application development, and also having some understanding of data and data science, I think is going to be very valuable for future generation of engineers.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds interesting. So my thoughts on, I mean, from what you just said, I heard a couple things. You said connected systems, you said
Mhm.
data science, you said, I think I heard you say digital, or digitized
Mhm.
systems, right? So to
Mhm.
me, what's going on right now, you know, there's three words that can describe it. Again, in my words, it's this connectedness, right?
Mhm.
Digitization or intelligence, right?
Mhm.
And automation, right?
Mhm.
You can call it Industry 4.0, or a subset of that would be Quality 4.0. And I know some folks think it's a fad, it will, blow over, right? It's just, it's a temporary thing, but I think this is here to stay, this
Oh
trend.
yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
really not, I mean, some folks call it the fourth industrial revolution. I mean, in a
Mhm.
way, it's a revolution. It's very different from what we've done in the past, or the past couple hundred years. But to me, it's more of an evolution, right?
Mhm.
So it's evolved into what it is now, and it's evolving so fast. Some of the technologies that um, we consider cutting edge right now have existed, for a decade or maybe 2 decades, right?
Mhm.
But in only in very little pockets of industry, right? And
Mhm.
now it's kind of blown up. It's all over the place, right? And it's kind
Mhm.
of hard to navigate, because it's kind of like the wild west right now. But
Correct.
what I'm seeing is the ever growing need for software in
Mhm.
industry, and also in quality engineering. So what's your take on how companies, corporations can harness the value that software can provide when it comes to Industry 4.0, or Industry
Mhm.
4.0, as some folks say.
Yeah.
How to get
Um,
started? So if I'm a small
mhm.
company, say I'm a small company, right?
Mhm.
I have paper-based processes everywhere, right?
Mhm.
I may be using some Excel sheets, or may have some of the processes digitized,
Mhm.
but I really don't have a strategy on how to get
Mhm.
started, right?
Yeah.
So how does one get started on this journey?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the point right on. I mean, therein lies the problem that you have so many companies, especially small, mid-sized companies, that have been doing so well, running their business day by day using paper and Excel. They really haven't fully embraced technology or integrated technology because there really hasn't been a need to do so. There isn't a market driver per se that is forcing these businesses to start adopting some of these new technologies, even though the value is there and the business cases are there.
Hmm.
It's just that the need hasn't been, the urgency hasn't been quite there yet. But I feel like the market is going to kind of shift in the next decade, where you're going to have your bigger enterprises, your OEMs, and your large scale manufacturers that are going to start pushing everybody in their value stream to start adopting a lot of these technologies, not just because there's an abundance of that technology now and they're more affordable now, but also because they want their businesses to integrate with everybody in their entire value stream, as most of them would call it end-to-end type of supply chain management. And so the more the OEMs and the higher up assembly companies push for end-to-end integration, the more you're going to see wide adoption of this type of technology. But also, I think there needs to be a mindset shift, right? I think
From
executives up top need to realize the value in having a digitally connected enterprise, not just to their supply base, but also to their customer base, and see the opportunities that it can unlock for an organization to operate more efficiently and more effectively, and to potentially even save money down the road.
Oh yeah, there's absolutely value, tremendous value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the connectedness, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just mentioned end-to-end supply chains, right?
Mm-hmm.
These fully connected supply chains can work together, like they haven't been able to before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also the intelligence part with all these, algorithms deployed on whatever it is that, uh, you're doing, you can get, predictions, which will help you with your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking, in general terms, but, this, that's what it really is, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
get, you know, you can have so much data right now, and on pretty much anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can deploy these advanced algorithms, whether it's machine learning or whatever it may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you need to know what you're looking for, right? You can't be just throwing software at your problems and expect it to solve all your problems, right? You
Mm-hmm.
need to kind of know how your decisions are made, what kind of
Mm-hmm.
insight you're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the third pillar is the automation part, right? So you have a lot of processes that are highly manual. I'm not necessarily talking about manual labor on the shop floor, but
Mm-hmm.
manual processes, um, which could be automated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these
Correct.
three things, you could get a lot of value by applying these three, you know, strategies or methodologies, but it's hard to get started when you have
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Yeah.
Because, so do you have any experience, any learnings from either previous companies or any of your past projects? Any successes, maybe any failures,
Mhm.
anything you might want to share with us?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I've done two projects thus far that are quite profound. I did it in a short period of time, and it became company wide. One project that I did at a SpaceX was called Hyperdrive. Essentially, that was an extension of our existing system called Warp Drive. And my approach with Hyperdrive was to start with the customer in mind, meaning that my customer were, your production personnel, your supervisors, your managers, your technicians on the shop floor. And a lot of these departments, our quality departments at SpaceX, we had six of them to be specific, had their own processes established on paper, established on Excel, established on Post-it notes. And I said, how can we take this process that they use day to day and digitize it, right? How can we build a web-based application that's hosted all across SpaceX so we can deploy it and make it widely accessible across the entire enterprise? And so what I did was I would go to the shop floor, understand their process. I would figure out a way to digitize that workflow and then develop it in a web-based application or a web-based portal, and then do constant testing and iteration on the shop floor, actually seeing the users and stakeholders use the application on the floor to see, is it easy to use? Is it still generating the same value that their paper-based process was generating for them? And I would just constantly get feedback for improvements every time they would use it. In fact, I made an application called Change Request application within my portal, so that
Mhm.
a user can actually just click a button, submit a change request to the application that's currently in development, and I would be able to hack at it within the next day or two, and then release the changes right on the fly so that they can get that instant feedback and validation that you need from your customer. So I think one of the keys to success in that project was that I was getting the customer involved early on. We were actually deploying it in a real environment and not just in a make-believe environment.
Mhm.
And we were just constantly testing and validating the value and the use case of the application we were developing. And we did that for a series of applications over the course of 2 to 3 months. And before we knew it, we were completely digitizing a majority of our quality workflows at SpaceX. So that was quite the accomplishment, I should say.
Oh, great. Okay, that sounds amazing. I mean, I would think that, a company like SpaceX, and I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Mhm.
I would think that, they would have this whole, digital thing down, just given that, Musk's one of Musk's other companies is Tesla, right?
Mhm.
So when you think of Tesla, it's a whole bunch of software, AI, autonomous driving, right? Was it
Mhm.
like that at SpaceX, or was it all different, somewhat different from
Yeah, I
from that?
can't make the comparison between Tesla and SpaceX. I haven't seen what Tesla's internal enterprise applications were like. I can tell you that there was definitely applications of AI and ML being used across SpaceX and the shop floor, and especially at the time I was there. And there was definitely some concept technologies that we were looking to deploy on the shop floor. Some examples of that was using AR headsets on the shop floor for our shop floor personnel to be able to see their work instructions right before their eyes instead of having
Man,
to go back
that's
to their
that's
computer screen.
fascinating. That is fascinating.
Yeah, we were looking to use Google Glass on the shop floor, and I thought that was pretty cool. But again,
Yeah.
you need really technically minded individuals to really deploy something like that. I know there's a lot of companies that have proposed the idea of using AR and VR on the shop floor, but it's not an easy application to develop and deploy. So I think you need to have a really good technical team around it. You need to have data.
But even
and
just, even just starting with video instructions, right?
Mhm.
That's that could be the first step,
Mhm.
right? Video has been, I mean, it's pretty simple to deploy. I mean, it sounds simple, right? But
Mhm.
when it comes to work instructions, right?
Mhm.
It would be, how much easier would it be if, the operator could just watch a video, right?
Mhm.
And, based on the video, they could
Mhm.
nail the job
Yeah.
instead of having to read through, a whole bunch of work instructions. I've been there. I've,
Mhm. Yeah.
I've done it, and it sucks. Sometimes you can't really capture all that information in a in a
Mhm.
you know in a piece of on a piece of paper, right?
Mhm.
So video work instructions could be a start, but
Oh yeah.
speaking of AR, VR, I've actually heard of what's called DR, diminished reality, right?
Oh, haven't heard of
So
that one.
yeah, so what that is, that could be like deployed on the shop floor, right? In
Mhm.
order for, say, an operator to be a lot more focused on the
Mhm.
job, right?
Mhm.
You would apply not AR, you wouldn't augment it, you would diminish, what is,
Mhm.
what's in front of them so they could focus on the job a lot better. So, sky's the
Interesting.
limit, but
Mhm.
you got to
Yeah.
start somewhere.
Yeah.
And from in my experience, right, especially you know some of the larger companies, they have maybe you know some level of digitization, right? They have many different systems, right? But those systems
Mhm.
are kind of like set in stone, right? So in a way, from what I've seen, right, this
Mhm.
whole digital transformation is probably easier for smaller enterprises or enterprises that have not embraced, you know, digital at all, because they're
Mhm.
essentially starting from a blank slate instead
Mhm.
of changing an already established, you know, system into, you know, you know, into a different system, which could be
Mm-hmm.
could pose a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to agree with that. I feel like companies that are starting with a blank slate are probably better positioned per se. Companies that are using a lot of third-party applications and trying to get them to connect and integrate are on, there's definitely some challenges that come with it. And however, that doesn't mean that every company that has existing systems are going to be facing with the same challenges. Bigger companies have the luxury of resources and team and money that they can throw at it, whereas smaller companies may not be so financially strapped to throw that kind of money at building a digital infrastructure, right? But it really just it just really comes down to whether the company really wants to embrace the technology, adopt it. The market is quite saturated with, solutions and applications for, things from, digitization of certain business processes to automation and data visualization and analytics and so on and so forth. And so it's really all about identifying which applications you're going to be using in your environment and making sure that those applications can connect and integrate seamlessly so that you don't have to, spend a considerable amount of resources and money towards getting those systems to actually talk to each other.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Now,
Mhm.
what kind of advice can you give
Mhm.
to, quality engineers or engineers
Mhm.
interested in, getting immersed in, software, whether it's
Mhm.
actually learning to code or better understanding how software development, the process works, or managing projects, or, there are so many, different areas within software. But
Mhm.
what can you give, the viewers some pointers on
Mhm.
where to get started? Because, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, it is something that engineers, need to get familiar with. I myself, I just started learning, how to code.
Mhm. Yeah,
I'm,
nice.
yeah, I'm just getting started, so I really can't, discuss, the technicalities with you at this
Yeah.
point. But yeah, it's yeah, you got to get with the program. You got to get familiar, with all these new technologies or some of these new technologies. I myself, I'm interested in data science. Being a quality engineer
Mhm.
myself, I just love critical thinking. Applying
Mhm.
statistics and data science. To me, obviously, data science requires heavy, some heavy programming skills, which I don't have, but yeah, I'm in the process of, you know, learning to code. That's not to
Mhm.
say I want to become a data scientist, but I'm sure
Mhm.
that in the near future, even in the near future, there will be a need for engineers, whether it's quality engineers, manufacturing engineers to be familiar
Mhm.
with, data science or programming um,
Mhm.
more and more. So, any pointers can give us
Mhm.
on where to get started?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great question. Um, Honestly, my recommendation would be get started where you feel most comfortable. For some people, that's a no code to low code environment. In others, that's a intense level of coding environment. Some people like to start a low level in terms of like more machine language, more assembly code. That's probably not the best place to start for most people. You probably want to start with some higher level scripting languages. Either it's stuff like Java, JavaScript, or maybe something like Python or Ruby. These are some languages that you could learn from a lot of online courses, like
I'm learning
on
Python.
Coursera. Yeah, Python. Yeah,
Yeah,
Python is
myself.
honest. It's
Yeah.
probably one of the most popular languages to learn right now. and it's very versatile where it can be used. It's used heavily in data science, but it's also used in programming and embedded programming and other applications as well too. You
Yeah.
can even use it in web application development. And there a lot of these are open source languages, so there's a big developer community around it. So you can find a lot of developer forums and blogs where people kind of show you examples of how to build certain applications. And so there's a lot of resources free that are totally free on the web that you can find that what's it called, that'll help you really learn that language. But like every language, programming is just like any other language where you gotta practice it. If you don't use it, you lose it, kind of thing, right? So the more and more you spend time and devote time towards practicing it, developing small scale applications here and there, the better you're going to get at it. And the other thing I would recommend is, there's a lot of data out there, especially at any company that has digitized systems, digitized ERPs and PLMs and quality management systems. So if you're an engineer that has access to that data, run some SQL queries, learn to extract the data, learn to do some data transformations, learn to import that data into softwares like Excel, Minitab, what's it called? Or if you have access to any data visualization software like Power BI or Tableau, learn to extract that data in those applications and start building some charts and dashboards using those applications.
That's some
I think
good advice right there. Good.
Yeah, I think the more and more you get yourself involved with data and data, ETL as they call it, or validation, what do you call it, data reporting and visualization, the better and more comfortable you're going to get with just data in general, and even potentially down the road more applications, architecture and development. So yeah, just get yourself more involved. I think that's that's my big piece of advice.
Sure. Man, I mean, there's so much one can learn. I consider myself a tech savvy person, but obviously I'm not, not one of those, young folks just, having graduated, from college, or like, for example, my daughter. I have a 7-year-old, and she's so tech savvy. She wants to be a gamer. She wants to be a YouTuber, and she has all these things down. It's crazy how, they just grow up in this environment, right? Not necessarily like, knowing how to code, but that's essentially just one step away from where they are, right? Whereas us, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my late 30s, right? Like I said, I'm a tech savvy person, but I think I have some catching up to do. And that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, I think we're about to be done. So I have one last question for you, actually two questions. So just coming out of 2020, which was, not an easy year, to say the least, right? For many reasons. What, and just, from what we've been talking about, from that perspective, what challenges do you see, and what opportunities do you see for, for the industry? Just, just coming out of 2020 and just beginning 2021 and the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think what 2020 taught most companies is the need to work virtually, and the need to embrace it, right? I think prior to 2020, there was a lot of companies who were dabbling with the idea of having their entire company work remotely. But it really took a pandemic, unfortunately, to get companies to really realize that, oh, we can still be productive working at home, right? Or working off site, kind of thing. But I think at the same token, what 2021 is going to be really focused on is companies further embracing technology, and integrating it in a
Yes.
day-to-day type of environment, so that they can learn to operate more effectively in a virtual environment. As we're seeing, COVID is not coming down in terms of case count. It's probably going to rise throughout the early parts of 2021.
Yeah.
And so it's going to become more crucial for companies to start looking at technology as a means of, constantly operating in this challenging environment, but also thriving in this type of environment. And I think, you know, if you're an application provider, this is the sweet spot. This is the time. There is a huge market driver that's pushing for the adoption of a lot of your technology. So it
There is a
it
need now, right?
there definitely
Companies
is a
have
need
been
now.
reluctant to,
Mhm,
to get on the wagon, right? But
mhm,
there truly is a need now, right? It's not
mhm,
about whether or not you want it, like
mhm,
you need to, to get started,
mhm.
um,
Correct.
is what I
Yeah.
think,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and then I think technologies that actually end up deploying a lot of technologies, sorry, companies deploying technologies, I think they're going to start really realizing the benefits of it, because now the environment, the market drivers are there to get companies to adopt this technology, but more importantly, people are going to start realizing that, oh wow, this actually did help our bottom line, right? It helped us operate more efficiently. It helped us, potentially reduce quality issues and stuff like that, thus helping us save money down the road, kind of thing. So I think, again, there's a vast amount of technology that's out there. It's just a matter of looking and finding and sourcing the right one and deploying it and seeing if it actually works to your benefit. And if it works, then keep it going and just build on top of it.
Sure, sure. Great. Thank you so much, Ollie.
Thank you.
As a last word, technology is here to stay. It's,
Hmm.
it's a tremendous, it offers, a tremendous amount of help and value, right? But technology
Hmm.
itself, in my opinion, will not solve your problems, right? You need to
No,
look at it
no.
from a practical perspective. You need to
Hmm.
understand your business processes. You need to understand how decisions are made, what it is that
Hmm.
you're looking for, and you need to motivate your workforce, your
Hmm.
employees, right? So that they
Hmm.
embrace this change, um,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
you know, not view it as a threat, right?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so with that said, yeah, it's been, this has been great. I really enjoy talking with you about stuff like this, and I'm glad that we got to, get this on tape. So,
Yeah.
all right, Ollie, thank you
Hmm.
so much.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This was a wonderful conversation. I think there's more to come in the future. So I'd be happy to talk more about software development and technology and Industry 4.0 someday.
Awesome, Ollie. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, have a good one.
Good one. That was the first episode of the Critical Talks podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode coming out soon. And in the meantime, make sure to follow the Critical Talks podcast LinkedIn page to get first-hand updates on new episodes and more. I will see you there.